Why? Half of America is empty. Nobody wants to live in these 10 empty states. Nostradamus saw it coming. America. A vast land, once seen as the dream for millions. But behind the illusion of growth and opportunity, a quiet emptiness is spreading. Have you ever wondered why nearly half of the United States feels deserted? While some cities overflow with life, entire states are fading into silence. Abandoned homes, shrinking towns, and highways that lead nowhere. The truth is, people are leaving fast. Is it the harsh weather, the lack of jobs, or is it something deeper, something even Nostradamus might have foreseen? In this video, the journey of wisdom uncovers 10 US states that are emptying out faster than you might imagine, and why nobody wants to live there anymore. So, stay with us, and before we dive in, remember to like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you don't miss more insights like this. Number 1. Montana. A land of striking beauty where the snow-capped Rockies rise like silent guardians and wild rivers carve paths through vast wilderness, Montana truly lives up to its nickname, Big Sky Country. And yet, beneath this natural splendor lies a quiet story of departure, a story echoed in recent numbers. In 2023, nearly 6,500 residents packed up and left, seeking opportunity and stability elsewhere. It's a paradox we often see in life. The outside is breathtaking, but the inside tells a different tale. While Montana draws in nature lovers and adventurers from around the world, few are willing or able to make it their permanent home. Much of that has to do with affordability. Over the past 3 years, the median home price in Montana has soared by more than 20%, pricing out many long-time residents. Add to that the growing burden of property taxes and a shrinking inventory of affordable housing, and you find families, seniors, and even young couples quietly drifting away in search of places where their dollar stretches a bit further and their stress a bit less. And then there's the question of work. While Montana is known for its robust agriculture and tourism, these industries often fail to provide the kind of stable, high-income jobs needed to retain young professionals. Many bright minds who once called Montana home are now finding careers and futures in neighboring states like Washington and Colorado, where tech, healthcare, and other growing sectors provide more promise. This brain drain is not just an economic issue, it's an emotional one. As generations leave, communities feel thinner, and the heart of small towns beats a little quieter. Harsh winters only deepen the struggle. With snowfall topping 100 inches in many regions and sub-zero temperatures becoming the norm for months, life in Montana isn't for the faint of heart. For retirees, families with young children, and those dealing with health challenges, the brutal climate becomes more than an inconvenience, it becomes a real barrier to comfort and safety. Speaking of health, access to healthcare has also become a serious concern. Rural hospitals continue to shut their doors, and for many Montans, a basic doctor's visit means traveling several hours, often in treacherous conditions. The lack of infrastructure investment, whether in roads, internet, or public health, sends a quiet message. Survival here is increasingly up to the individual. It reminds us of an old Buddhist teaching. Just as a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, even so the wise are not affected by praise or blame. But here in Montana, the storm isn't just metaphorical. It's real. And for many, it's become too much. So what can we take from Montana's situation? Perhaps it reminds us that beauty alone cannot nourish the soul. As we navigate our own lives, it's worth asking, are we clinging to something simply because it looks beautiful from the outside? Whether it's a job, a home, or even a relationship, real sustainability comes from inner balance, financial, emotional. As the Dalai Lama once said, a lack of transparency results in distrust and a deep sense of insecurity. Many in Montana are feeling that insecurity now, not just from the weather, but from systems that no longer support them. If we're to build lives that are truly livable, we must look beyond the surface, beyond the scenery, and ask ourselves what really keeps us rooted. It's not just about where we live, but how. Number 2, South Dakota. Let's talk about South Dakota, a state that holds some of America's most iconic landmarks, like the towering faces of Mount Rushmore carved into ancient rock, drawing millions of visitors every year. But here's something you might not expect. While tourists come and go, not many people are choosing to stay. In fact, South Dakota is quietly losing residents. According to the 2023 census, over 5,000 people packed up and left. That's not just a number, it's a reflection of deeper challenges that many in this state are facing. So, what's really happening here? And what can we learn from it? If you've ever driven across South Dakota, you know it's filled with wide open spaces, rolling plains, and a strong sense of tradition rooted in farming. Agriculture is still the backbone of the state's economy, and tourism helps too. But outside of those sectors, opportunities are thin. Unless you're in cities like Sioux Falls or Rapid City, jobs are limited, and wages often can't compete with neighboring states like Minnesota or Colorado. For young professionals just starting out, or families looking to build a future, that's a big red flag. Why stay in a place where your career might stall before it even begins? And then, there's the weather. Winters in South Dakota aren't just cold, they're unforgiving. We're talking about temperatures plunging below -10 degrees Fahrenheit, blizzards that shut down roads and long stretches of isolation. That kind of cold doesn't just freeze water, it freezes movement, motivation, even mental health for some. Now ask yourself, if you had the option to move somewhere with a milder climate and more opportunity, would you take it? Healthcare adds another layer to the issue. In rural areas of South Dakota, people often have to travel hours just to see a specialist. Imagine being elderly, living on a farm an hour from the nearest hospital, and not knowing if a doctor will even be available when you need one. That's the reality for many here, and it's making the state less viable for both aging residents and the younger generations trying to care for them. Even though housing is cheap, low cost doesn't always mean quality of life. Would you trade affordability for isolation and limited access to services? Here's the thing. South Dakota isn't without hope. The state has strong roots, proud communities, and untapped potential. But until the economy becomes more diverse and inclusive, until healthcare access improves and industries offer real career growth, the population is likely to keep shrinking. And that's a loss not just for South Dakota, but for the broader American story. So what does this tell us about the kind of places we choose to live? Is it only about money, or is it also about connection, opportunity, and well-being? In the end, South Dakota's struggle is a quiet call for balance. It reminds us that beauty and history, while important, aren't enough on their own to build a sustainable life. We need to create communities where people can thrive, not just survive. The lesson here, no matter where you live, look beyond the surface, ask what truly supports a good life. Is it weather, work, wellness, or something more? Let this be a reflection point. What do you value most in a place you call home? Number 3. Maine. Let me tell you a story, not just about a state, but about a quiet struggle that speaks volumes about the changes unfolding in parts of America. Let's talk about Maine. Now, you may picture it as a peaceful coastal paradise, full of charm with its rocky shores, iconic lighthouses, and forests that seem to stretch forever. But beneath that postcard beauty is a deeper truth. Maine is slowly emptying out, and not many people are choosing to stay. Have you ever wondered why a place that looks so calm and beautiful is being left behind? The answer isn't just about weather or location. It's about people, purpose, and the future they envision for themselves. You see, Maine is currently one of the fastest aging states in the entire country. The average age here is 45, and that number keeps climbing. This means that while Maine has wisdom and experience, it's struggling to hold on to its youth. Young people, full of energy and dreams, are looking beyond Maine's borders to bigger cities like Boston, where job markets are more dynamic, salaries are higher, and opportunities feel more abundant. The jobs that do exist in Maine, mostly in tourism, fishing, and seasonal industries, are simply not enough to support the kind of long-term, financially stable life that many people are seeking. As the Buddha once said, "Nothing is permanent. Everything is subject to change. Being is always becoming." And perhaps that's what we're seeing in Maine, a state that is becoming something else, even if it's not sure what that is yet. Let's think about this. If you were a young person starting your career, would you stay in a place where job options are limited, winters are brutally cold, and access to healthcare is getting harder to find? Maine's winters are not for the faint of heart. Snowstorms that blanket the land with more than 75 inches a year, temperatures that bite through your coat, and long, dark months of icy roads. It's enough to make even lifelong residents rethink where they want to spend their years. Many retirees who once might have settled into Maine for its peace and quiet are now packing up for sunnier, more comfortable climates like Florida or the Carolinas, where healthcare is easier to access and the cost of living is often more manageable. And speaking of cost of living, let's not forget housing. Maine used to be known for its affordable homes, but that's changing too. In just 3 years, home prices have jumped nearly 15%, and with that rise come property taxes that squeeze middle semi-families even harder. For young families hoping to plant roots, it's becoming harder and harder to find something affordable. And even if you do, the rising taxes and limited local services might make you think twice. It makes one wonder, is the value of a place just in its beauty or in how it supports the people who live there? Healthcare, or the lack of it, is another heavy weight on the hearts of those who remain. In many rural areas of Maine, doctor shortages and hospital closures have made getting basic medical attention a real challenge. Imagine being an elderly resident in need of regular care, but the nearest hospital is hours away, or worse, has shut down. The stress alone is enough to drive people away, seeking better care and peace of mind elsewhere. Health is the greatest gift, said the Buddha. When that gift becomes harder to reach, people begin to look elsewhere to protect it. So, dear listener, let me ask you, what makes a place truly livable? Is it the landscape, the weather, the economy, or is it a sense of belonging, of being supported, of having a future to build? Maine is still full of beauty, history, and resilience, But the question remains, how can it evolve to welcome and keep the generations that are yet to come? These questions are not just for Maine, but for all of us, as we consider what it means to live not just in a place, but with purpose and presence. If you've watched up to this point, you're already uncovering the truth behind why half of America is empty, and what it means for your future. Comment below with "Eyes Open" to show you're ready to see beyond the surface and explore what others overlook. Don't click away just yet. There's still powerful insight ahead that ties history, mystery, and prediction into what's happening today. Stay with us until the end. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Number 4. Wyoming. Wyoming may be home to the breathtaking landscapes of Yellowstone National Park, but beauty alone isn't enough to keep people from leaving. Beneath its wide-open skies and rugged charm lies a deeper story, a story of a state struggling to hold on to its people. In recent years, including the year 2023, Wyoming has watched its population steadily decline, with over 3,000 residents choosing to move elsewhere. Harsh winters are a major factor, with snowstorms that blanket roads, freezing temperatures that stretch on for months, and the kind of isolation that comes from being snowed in for days. Many find the climate too intense to endure long-term. Especially for those not raised in such environments, the desire for a more manageable lifestyle often leads them toward warmer, more urbanized states. But it's not just the weather that's pushing people out. It's also what's missing when the snow melts. Economic opportunities in Wyoming are limited. While the energy sector and ranching continue to play a vital role in the state's identity, those industries don't offer the range or volume of careers needed to sustain a growing, modern population. High-paying jobs in areas like technology, advanced healthcare, and finance are scarce, and that reality hits young professionals the hardest. College graduates often don't return after finishing school, not because they don't love their home state, but because they can't find a future there. This creates a ripple effect where communities begin to age and shrink, with few newcomers to bring fresh energy. And as towns become smaller, services become harder to maintain. Access to healthcare is another significant challenge. With so many rural and remote communities, even something as basic as seeing a doctor can require hours of travel. For retirees, families with children, or anyone managing chronic health conditions, this poses a serious concern. In today's world, where convenience and speed are essential, the difficulty in receiving timely care is a deal breaker for many. Even with the cost of living being relatively low, wages haven't kept up. Without a strong economy or a competitive job market, people find little reason to settle down or start over in Wyoming. This paints a larger picture, one where natural beauty isn't enough if the systems that support daily life aren't there. It speaks to a deeper lesson we see in many areas of life. What looks good on the surface may not sustain us if there's no real foundation. As we navigate our own choices, whether it's where to live, what career to pursue, or how to support our families, it helps to think beyond aesthetics. Ask, is this place or path truly supportive of my needs, my well-being, my growth? Wyoming teaches us that people will always seek balance, beauty with opportunity, peace with connection, simplicity with support. Without meaningful investment in infrastructure, health, and industry, Wyoming may remain a place more visited than lived in. For each of us, it's a reminder to build our lives where both our hearts and futures can thrive. Number 5. West Virginia. Let's take a closer look at West Virginia, a place once known as the beating heart of America's coal industry, rich in natural beauty, deep community ties, and proud, hard-working people. But today, this state is facing one of the steepest declines in the country, and it's not just about numbers. It's about the lives, dreams, and futures quietly slipping away. Between 2022 and 2023 alone, more than 18,000 people packed up and left. Think about that for a moment. That's not just a statistic. That's families, young people with potential, elderly folks needing care, all feeling like they have no choice but to search for better opportunities elsewhere. Why is this happening? At the core of it is the collapse of the very industry that built West Virginia, coal mining. Once the backbone of the local economy, coal has been on a long, steady decline, squeezed by automation and the country's shift toward cleaner energy. And when a single industry holds up a whole region, its fall can feel like a domino effect. Jobs disappear, towns empty out, and hope begins to wane. But job loss is only part of the story. West Virginia is also one of the poorest states in the country, with a poverty rate of 16.6%. That means 1 in every 6 people is struggling just to get by. Can you imagine trying to raise a family or plan for your future when even basic needs are hard to meet? Low wages only make matters worse. Compared to surrounding states, working in West Virginia often means doing more for less, and for many, that becomes too heavy a burden to carry. So they leave, not because they want to, but because they feel they must. Education is another roadblock for many families. The state ranks near the bottom when it comes to public school quality and access to higher education. If you're a parent, what kind of future would you want for your child? When local schools struggle and college options are limited, many people feel forced to move just so their kids can have a chance at something better. This creates a cycle where the young, who could help rebuild the state, are the first to go, leaving behind an aging population with fewer resources to support them. And then there's healthcare, a basic human need. Rural hospitals in West Virginia have been closing their doors due to chronic underfunding, making it harder and harder for residents to get care when they need it. What happens when the nearest doctor is miles away? Or when emergency services take too long to reach you? People start to ask themselves, is this a place I can really grow old in? Is this somewhere I can raise a family safely? When those questions go unanswered, leaving becomes more than a choice, it becomes a necessity. So let's pause here and reflect. What makes a place worth staying in? Is it just the job opportunities? Or is it the ability to build a life with dignity, with support, with hope for the next generation? West Virginia's story is more than a tale of economic decline. It's a call to action, a reminder that when a community is left behind, it doesn't vanish quietly. It sends a message to the rest of us. What can we do, whether as citizens, policymakers, or simply as caring human beings, to ensure that places like West Virginia don't just become empty on a map, but instead are seen as places full of potential, deserving of investment, innovation, and compassion? The lesson here is simple but powerful. When we fail to build systems that support people through jobs, education, and healthcare, we create environments where survival becomes harder than leaving. But this also means that change is possible. What if we started valuing every state, every town, every person with the same care we'd want for ourselves? The true strength of a nation is not just found in its biggest cities, but in its ability to uplift even its quietest corners. Number 6. North Dakota. Let's talk about North Dakota. This wide, open state with its peaceful plains and small-town spirit, yet one that's quietly watching its population slip away. Now, you might be wondering, how can a state rich in oil and natural beauty be struggling to keep its people? That's a good question, and it takes more than a quick glance to understand the deeper layers behind this exodus. You see, even though North Dakota was once the heart of an oil boom that brought in workers from all over the country, things have changed. Automation in the oil fields and unpredictable market swings have drastically reduced the need for human labor, and that's left a lot of folks, especially younger workers, searching for new opportunities elsewhere. And while you'd think a state blessed with economic potential might bounce back easily, the truth is the decline in job diversity is pushing professionals to places that offer a broader future, places where careers don't hinge on just one industry. Have you ever had to choose between staying in a place you love and moving for the sake of your future? That's the dilemma many North Dakotans are facing today. But the economy is only part of the story. Let's talk about the winters, those bitter, bone-chilling winters where temperatures can sink to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Imagine waking up to blizzard conditions that make commuting, grocery shopping, or even stepping outside feel like survival training. For many people, the emotional and physical toll of such extreme weather builds up over time, leading them to ask, is it really worth it? For some, especially families with children or elderly members, the answer is becoming a firm no. Climate isn't just a matter of preference here, it's shaping the very future of the population. And when it comes to healthcare, the challenges grow even more personal. Rural hospitals are closing at a worrisome rate, and for many communities, this means having to drive hours just to see a doctor or fill a prescription. Think about that. What would you do if your closest hospital shut down and your only option was a 2-hour drive in the snow just to get a checkup? This isn't just inconvenient, it can be life-threatening, especially for the elderly or those with chronic conditions. In a time when people are seeking more security and accessibility in their lives, limited healthcare options become a deal breaker. Now, North Dakota still offers a relatively low cost of living and a quiet, slower pace of life that many might dream of. But is that enough? Can affordable housing make up for the isolation, the shrinking job market, and the lack of critical services? These are the kinds of questions that residents are grappling with, and if you're someone who's ever thought about relocating for a better life, maybe they're questions you've asked yourself too. The truth is, North Dakota isn't empty because it lacks value. It's empty because it's becoming harder and harder for everyday people to build a sustainable life there. So now I'll ask you, what makes a place worth staying in? Is it money, peace, safety, opportunity, or is it a mix of all of those? Understanding why people leave North Dakota is really about understanding what all of us are seeking in the places we call home. Still watching? That means you're ready to go deeper than headlines and uncover the forgotten stories of these 10 silent states. Drop a "ready for revelation" in the comments if you're with us. There's more to this mystery. And the final part of this video connects it all in a way you won't expect. Number 7, Mississippi. Mississippi, a state rich in culture and history, yet facing a quiet and steady exodus of its people. In recent years, more and more residents have been packing up and leaving, with over 9,000 people departing in 2023 alone. While some may see this as just numbers on a page, behind each statistic is a family seeking something better. whether it's financial stability, quality education for their children, or simply a safer, healthier place to grow old. Mississippi's economy plays a large role in this trend. With a median household income hovering around $50,500, among the lowest in the nation, it's not hard to see why so many are drawn to states with more job opportunities and higher wages. The state regularly ranks near the bottom when it comes to job growth and overall economic progress, leaving many feeling trapped in a cycle of struggle with no clear path forward. As people search for dignity in their work and the chance to provide for their families, they often feel they have no choice but to leave behind the place they once called home. Education is another deep concern, and it hits close to the heart of every parent. Mississippi ranks last in the nation in terms of educational outcomes. Chronic underfunding, poor test scores, and high dropout rates have plagued the public school system for decades. In a world where knowledge opens doors, parents know that staying might cost their children the future they dream of. So, families move, not because they want to, but because they feel they must. They're searching for better schools, more resources, and communities that will nurture their kids' potential. And in many ways, this is a deeply human story. Not about abandoning roots, but about doing whatever it takes to help the next generation thrive. Healthcare in Mississippi tells another chapter of hardship. Many rural hospitals have shut their doors due to financial struggles, and the state has one of the highest rates of uninsured residents in the country. For aging individuals or those with chronic health needs, this makes staying increasingly risky. Imagine needing medical attention and having to drive hours just to see a doctor, or worse, not having access at all. It's a frightening reality that many residents face daily. Health, after all, is not just a personal concern. It's a matter of community well-being. Without proper care, entire regions become less livable, and people begin to look elsewhere for peace of mind and a chance to age with dignity. Then there's the issue of infrastructure, which may seem invisible until it's broken. Mississippi's roads, bridges, and utilities are in critical need of repair, but the funding to fix them is scarce. Poor infrastructure not only makes everyday life harder, it also discourages businesses from investing, which in turn hurts job creation. It becomes a loop. No investment means no growth, and no growth pushes more people away. When cities and towns don't feel livable, when streets crumble, when power outages are frequent, when clean water isn't guaranteed, hope starts to fade. Still, there's something important to remember in all this. The reasons people are leaving Mississippi aren't just numbers or headlines. They're signs of what matters most to us as human beings: stability, opportunity, health, and a sense of belonging. For those listening today who may be going through similar challenges in their own towns, Mississippi's story offers a moment of reflection. It reminds us to look closely at what our communities need, to speak up for improvements, and to value not just where we live, but how we live. In a modern world moving fast, people crave connection, purpose, and security. And while some may find that by leaving, others can help rebuild by staying and working toward a better tomorrow, one where no one is left behind. Number 8. Kansas. Kansas, a place that once stood as a proud symbol of America's agricultural heartland, endless golden wheat fields under wide open skies, is now facing a quieter crisis. Even though Kansas offers a relatively low cost of living, more and more people are packing up and moving away. In 2023 alone, over 6,000 residents left, according to the US Census. So why are people turning away from this state that once promised stability and simplicity? The truth is, it's a mix of economic, environmental, and social factors that are all pushing in the same direction. Let's talk about the economy first. While farming still holds its ground, Kansas has struggled to create opportunities in fast-growing industries like technology, healthcare, and renewable energy. Without these jobs, young professionals, those with dreams, degrees, and ambitions, are heading to states like Colorado or Texas, where the job markets are booming and diverse. If you are just starting your career, would you stay where opportunity feels limited, or go where doors are opening? Weather is another powerful force shaping people's decisions. Summers in Kansas often sizzle past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and winters don't offer much relief, with freezing storms, icy roads, and heavy snow. Then there are the tornadoes. Kansas is part of Tornado Alley, and the fear of natural disasters is real. This isn't just about discomfort, it's about safety, property damage, and the mental toll of always being on alert. How would you feel raising a family in a place where severe weather is not a rare event, but a regular part of life? Beyond weather and work, there's the quality of life. When people think of building a future, they think of more than just surviving, they think of living. But outside of Kansas City and Wichita, options for entertainment, dining, cultural events, or social experiences are limited. Young people, in particular, often crave vibrant energy, creative outlets, and spaces where they can connect and grow. Can a small town with one diner and a gas station hold on to someone who dreams of art galleries, concerts, or startup meetups? Then we come to public services. This might be the quietest crisis of all. Rural hospitals in Kansas are closing at an alarming rate, leaving many communities without access to essential health care. Education funding has also fallen short in some regions, and that has consequences that echo across generations. Families want the best for their children, not just decent schooling, but great teachers, safe environments, and support systems. Would you stay if your child couldn't get the medical care or education they need to thrive? So what are we really seeing here? Kansas isn't just losing people, it's losing dreams, potential, and a future that could have been. It's not about blaming the land or its people, it's about understanding that when communities lack opportunity, support, and safety, even the strongest roots can be pulled up. As we reflect on this, a deeper question arises. What truly makes a place worth staying in? Is it the cost of living or the quality of life? Is it tradition or transformation? Kansas has so much heart, history, and possibility. But if meaningful investment isn't made in jobs, healthcare, education, and culture, the trend will continue. Not because people don't care, but because they have no choice. If we want places like Kansas to thrive, we must listen to what people need to stay. Not just economically, but emotionally and spiritually. A community is more than roads and buildings. It's a living thing, nurtured by opportunity, connection, and care. And when we stop feeding that spirit, people will move on, looking for where they can truly grow. Number 9, Nebraska. Imagine standing in the middle of America, right in the heart of the Midwest, where golden fields stretch for miles under open skies. This is Nebraska. It sounds peaceful, maybe even a little romantic, doesn't it? But here's the reality. Despite all its charm, more and more people are packing up and leaving the state. In fact, according to census data from 2023, Nebraska saw a net migration loss of over 4,500 people. That means more folks left than moved in, and it raises a question we all should ask. Why are people leaving a place that seems to offer peace, space, and affordability? Let's dive in, because the reasons are more complex than you might expect. First, let's talk about the structure of the state. Aside from Omaha and Lincoln, Nebraska is made up mostly of small towns. And while that might sound idyllic to some, to many, especially younger generations, it feels limiting. There's a lack of nightlife, entertainment, and diverse career paths. If you're someone fresh out of college or a young professional trying to grow in your career, wouldn't you naturally be drawn to cities with more energy, more opportunities, and a wider social scene? That's exactly what's happening. Places like Denver, Austin, or Nashville are calling people away from states like Nebraska, offering not just jobs, but lifestyle choices that feel more aligned with modern ambitions. Then there's the climate, and Nebraska doesn't hold back. Winters can be bone-chillingly cold, and summers swing to the other extreme with blistering heat. Now add to that the very real threat of tornadoes, and you start to understand how the weather alone can feel like a deal-breaker. Who wouldn't want to live somewhere with a bit more consistency and comfort? The harsh conditions make it tough to enjoy outdoor life, and they also strain infrastructure and resources. And sure, housing is affordable, and that's a good thing. But when wages remain stagnant, affordability starts to lose its appeal. People aren't just looking for cheap places to live, they're looking for places to thrive. When nearby states offer higher paying jobs and similar costs of living, you can see why many Nebraskans decide it's time to move on. Wouldn't you want to go where your paycheck stretches further and grows over time? Now let's not overlook healthcare, something we all rely on at some point in our lives. In rural parts of Nebraska, hospitals are closing down. Imagine being a parent with a sick child or an older adult managing a chronic condition, and the nearest hospital is over an hour away. It's not just inconvenient, it can be dangerous. This lack of accessibility hits families the hardest, and it becomes one more reason to consider relocating. And jobs? Outside of agriculture, which has always been a backbone of Nebraska's economy, there just aren't enough opportunities in emerging industries. So, if you're not interested in farming or don't come from that background, you may feel stuck or left out. It's no wonder so many are seeking futures in places where the economy is more diverse and future-ready. So let's pause for a moment. If you were living in Nebraska, facing harsh weather, limited career growth, few healthcare options, and a social scene that doesn't quite excite you, what would you do? This is the quiet story playing out across the state. It's not about people hating Nebraska. It's about people hoping for something more. And unless changes are made to support growth, innovation, and well-being, the trend of people leaving might only continue. What do you think? Is it possible to breathe new life into the heartland? Number 10. Alaska. Alaska, the crown jewel of American wilderness and by far the largest state in the US, finds itself paradoxically struggling with a shrinking population. Despite its vast natural beauty, untouched landscapes, and a strong cultural identity tied to independence and self-reliance, more and more people are choosing to leave. In 2023 alone, over 5,000 residents packed their bags and left the state, continuing a steady decline that has lasted more than a decade. The reasons are layered and interconnected, beginning with the sheer cost of living. Because Alaska is so geographically isolated from the rest of the country, the price of everyday necessities like groceries and gasoline is substantially higher. Shipping costs drive up prices, and when combined with already limited retail infrastructure, families often find themselves choosing between quality of life and basic affordability. Housing costs aren't helping either. Anchorage, the state's largest city, has seen median home prices climb beyond $429,000, putting home ownership out of reach for many working-class residents. But it's not just economics that's pushing people away. Nature itself poses a formidable challenge. Alaska's winters are not just cold, they are brutal and punishing, with temperatures dipping to -50 degrees Fahrenheit in some rural areas. The darkness, lasting up to 19 hours a day in certain seasons, can weigh heavily on mental health, creating a sense of isolation even within tight-knit communities. Snowfall, often romanticized in travel brochures, becomes a daily burden for residents who must navigate icy roads and frozen pipelines just to get to work or run simple errands. These harsh realities make daily life physically and emotionally demanding, especially for those not born and raised in such extremes. Then there's the job market, which, although lucrative in certain sectors like oil, gas, and commercial fishing, offers very few opportunities outside of these narrow fields. If you're a young professional in tech, education, or finance, the options in Alaska are minimal, prompting many to seek brighter prospects in more urbanized states. The result is a brain drain, a steady loss of young, educated individuals who leave not because they don't love Alaska, but because they don't see a future there. In modern life, where career flexibility and job variety are key to personal fulfillment, this limited economy becomes a major drawback. And when young people leave, they often take with them the potential for community renewal and innovation. Healthcare further complicates life in Alaska, particularly for those living outside of major cities. Remote villages and towns often lack immediate access to medical facilities, requiring patients to fly hundreds of miles for treatment. This is not just inconvenient, it's a critical risk for families with children, the elderly, and anyone managing chronic illnesses. Even though the state offers attractive financial incentives like the annual permanent fund dividend, they often aren't enough to outweigh these substantial lifestyle challenges. For retirees looking for peace and stability, or families needing routine care, the trade-off between scenic beauty and basic health care is too great. So, while Alaska remains a land of adventure and wonder, a place where the mountains seem to speak and the silence of snow is almost spiritual, these poetic truths are met with the hard facts of modern living. For many, the dream of Alaska becomes unsustainable when daily survival outweighs the promise of rugged beauty. This dilemma invites us to reflect on a deeper question. In our pursuit of a meaningful life, how do we balance the call of nature with the necessities of modern comfort and connection? Whether you're considering a move, planning retirement, or just thinking about what makes a place feel like home, Alaska's story is a reminder that even the most majestic places need strong foundations to keep people rooted. And in today's world where flexibility, health, and belonging matter more than ever, the challenge is not just to draw people in, but to give them a reason to stay. As we've seen, the reasons behind America's emptying states go far beyond the surface. It's not just about weather or jobs. It's about connection, opportunity, health, and the quiet human need to feel rooted and supported. From the vast plains of Kansas to the frozen beauty of Alaska, the story is the same. People are searching for balance, for places where life is not only possible, If this video sparked new thoughts or helped you see things differently, we invite you to be part of our journey. Please like this video, share it with others who care about the future of our communities, and subscribe to the Journey of Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss our next reflection on life, society, and the choices that shape us. Until next time, stay mindful, stay compassionate, and may your path be filled with wisdom.